that you know that I don't know.
All right. I got the live stream up. Looks like it's live. There's 6 people watching. I have hit record in Audition.
Boop. So did I.
All right.
Mm.
It's Thursday, August 8th, 2023. I'm Rem. It's August 10th.
Scott.
I fucked it up.
No.
It's Thursday, August 10th, 2023. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight, we are talking about Halls of Fame. So, Emily was out of town for like 2 weeks. I was, on my own recognizance. And when I'm home alone for more than like a day, I end up in goblin mode pretty quick. I'm eating dinner at like 10 o'clock at night. I'm like going out to get pizza at like 10 o'clock at night for dinner. I'm playing video games and forgetting what time it is. It's quiet around the house. And the rabbit is also like, where's Emily? And why are you sitting in the computer room all day? But one thing I did over the last weekend, is I just biked up to Poughkeepsie on my own for, biked 100 miles just for fun. And on the way home, I'm at Poughkeepsie. First I'm in the restaurant I'm having dinner at before I'm going to get on the train, and I look, and there are 6 minutes before the next train leaves back to New York City. The restaurant is...
If you miss that one, you're going to be waiting 66 minutes.
Exactly, in Poughkeepsie, where there's really nothing to do. So I get the check, and the restaurant is like 30 seconds away from the train, and I get to the train station. I see I've got 2 minutes before the train's going to leave. It's all good. And I am walking in.
Didn't come early and leave early?
No, because remember, it's the end station, so that train never leaves early. In fact, it usually leaves...
Right.
It usually leaves a few minutes late, and they usually don't open the doors to even let people on the train until it's supposed to leave. Yeah, okay. I've been on that train many a time. So... as I'm in the train station, I'm walking with my bike, and I see 2 conductors who I'm 100% sure are the conductors for the train I'm taking. And they're talking to each other, and one of them says, "Watch out, I heard there's like 50 bikes down there." And Metro North has the right to just say, "Sorry, too many bikes, fuck you," and they don't let you on the train.
Well, I think it depends on the train. Some of the trains... they now actually put a bicycle symbol.
So they do that. I learned from the conductor that symbol means nothing. No train and no conductor even knows that exists. And in fact,
definitely have some written policies. And then
the policy is
each conductor does whatever the fuck they want.
Yes.
There is no actual, written policy is meaningless.
So this train.
However, I do know that various bike clubs and bike organizations will call the MTA and say, "Hey, we're doing a bike ride. This many bikes are coming to the train," and the MTA does do some amount of accommodating.
Yep,
it's non-zero when you let them know in advance.
Yep,
like, we're doing a bike ride on Sunday, and we're gonna take the 3 p.m. train home from such and such place.
Yep. So they're saying this, and they're standing by the elevator, and I come behind them with my bike, and they look at me and they just laugh. And then they look back at each other. Then we get down, and there's not 50 bikes. There's like 10 bikes.
Yeah.
But
there's 50 bikes would be like a super organized mega ride. That's very unusual, right? Most group rides are going to be 10.
So everyone on the platform except me was part of a group ride. I was the only one with a bike on this train who was not part of this group ride. And even though this train was designated with the special Bike Plus symbol, the conductor was like, "There's only one car that the bikes can go in. So all you bike people get in this one car and just make it fit. Just make it fit," and it was fine. So I hung out with all of these bike people on the way home. And, there are a bunch of fun stories hanging out with all these people. They took their bikes on the train to Poughkeepsie, biked around all day, and then took the train back. I was the only one who biked to Poughkeepsie and took the train back. But we start talking about where people went to college, and I mentioned, "Oh yeah, I went to a place upstate, RIT." And this one guy, I'm quoting him exactly, word for word, says, "RIT, damn, that's a big brain school. How'd you get into RIT?"
Okay.
And these people they all went to different schools, and they're all like, yeah, RIT, like we got some friends who went to RIT. They make big money. And I was like, I make big money. And
We'll make money, but it's not a big brain school.
I had seen, at least among this group of bikers.
With poor grades.
Remember, though, when we went there, RIT was a very different school. It was a third the size physically. Like, when we got there, the edge of campus was like Crossroads. That's like not even the center of campus anymore. It's so big.
Mm-hmm.
And 2, tuition's like way more than it used to be. And 3, they don't let people with D's in anymore like they used to.
They used to let them in and kick them out.
Yep. The attrition rate in IT and CS is no longer like more than 50%.
Yeah, whatever.
But I was the moment when this guy's like big brain school, and they're all like, "Wow, you went to RIT," was a weird moment.
It's like you could react that way if someone says, yeah, I have like a PhD from Oxford.
Yeah, well, because what I expected, usually when I tell people I went to RIT, people think I said RPI for some reason.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And that was a shift.
But if they are, usually if the person knows RIT, they'll be like, if they know that, they'll be like, the people normally confuse RPI, but it wasn't. I know.
Yep.
Right? So it's one or the other.
And then one of the other people is like, wait, didn't they have a really good hockey team? And it was a whole RIT conversation with these kids. And they had heard of the RIT Anime Club too. Like like they knew of it.
Okay.
So yeah, that was my fun ride home. That was what I got. In the news, and this is, I feel like we at least need to mention it, but I don't want to dwell on it. Like I'm mentioning this partly because there's a good chance that the United States is going to need to raise a lot of Red Cross money in a hurry. There are like catastrophic wildfires that came out of nowhere in Hawaii right now. Like this is a rapidly developing, like send in the military situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we had fires in Canada. You get fires in the PNW. We got fires all over the earth, basically, right? Australia had fires, but it's like Hawaii was not the place I thought was going to be set on fires. First of all, I thought it was all palm trees, which usually you don't associate with being set on fire.
Yep, I learned a lot about these wildfires from reading the news, and there's like a terrifying confluence of situation.
Yeah, usually I think of a fire in Hawaii, I think the volcano erupted, right?
Yep.
But no.
So the root cause is directly climate change. Like climate change caused this. Full stop.
Climate change made it too dry, and then a hurricane blew wind.
Yep.
Wind plus
a hurricane caused by climate change, exacerbated by the fact that the air was very dry because of climate change.
Right, but the point is, dry plus wind plus any amount of heat sparking is good. There you go. Fire, boom.
Yep.
Right?
Plus the shape.
As a bellows, and is kindling.
It's even worse.
One ingredient. As soon as that ingredient comes in, you're all done.
It's even worse. The shape of the island actually is contributing to this directly in ways that I'm not going to explain because I barely understand them. Read the internet about this. But these fires appeared out of nowhere, overran entire towns. People are literally like jumped into the sea to safety, and like boats are trying to save them.
Who jumped into the sea.
No, there's a lot. I saw the video. The Coast Guard is like setting up a thing around this now. It's moving rapidly. At least 40 people are dead.
Most of the people are far enough away from it now that they're not jumping in the sea.
Yes, but that was in Lahaina, I think, is where that was happening.
Yeah, but the point is their houses are gone.
Yeah, entire towns are gone.
This is what we were experiencing, where there was a wildfire off in the woods, and it just covers us in smoke, and we have to hide indoors. Yep. Actually, all the houses get burned down, and the whole city's gone.
But the trickiest part right now,
people are being set on fire and dying,
is that we're not getting a lot of detailed reporting. And we don't know.
Go there and report on.
Well, yeah, we don't know the full situation because the cell phone networks are largely collapsed in these areas now, and first responders can't get in. The United States government just declared this basically a maximum scale disaster, and FEMA and the Coast Guard and the Red Cross and the military are like mobilizing around this.
Yep.
So
it's the catastrophic disaster of it's basically like Godzilla level.
Yeah. It's this is climate change world, and if you know anyone who doesn't think climate change is real or rejects the idea that we should do something about it, they are evil and you should not associate with them.
We should the bill for all these damages should be paid for by oil companies
directly.
Not tax Yep. It's like just, if this costs $6 billion to repair, we just fine all the oil companies collectively $6 billion.
Yep.
Right?
Maybe some car companies along the way, like the first companies that marketed SUVs.
Yep. You got a coal power plant? We will just garnish your profits, 100% of them, until all is made whole.
Also, Joe Manchin in particular, just empty his bank account. It's a drop in the bucket, but we should still empty that bank account.
Just saying.
But in some news that's positive, because I want to make a point when we talk about these kinds of things to talk about we don't always lose. It's not always a disaster. There was a huge vote in Ohio that most people who don't live in the state of Ohio or are not extremely, possibly overly dialed into American politics would not have known about. But there was an August election in Ohio, which is like, normally this is one of those election dates that is only in Ohio that like...
Is it an election if you're not electing people? Isn't it just a vote?
It's a vote. It's a voting day. I don't know the full details of it because I don't live in Ohio, but it's rarely used. And like, even when there's a vote on these dates, like nobody votes in them. But this one had some of the highest turnouts ever of any election in Ohio because there's the backstory that's kind of important. So Ohio is run by the fascist party in America, the Republicans, but by a small majority. This is like 52%, 48% statewide. Like it's a very close majority, but they control the government and they're basically banning abortion. Like that's what they're doing.
Well, but they can't just ban it straight up. They need to have a vote directly from the people.
Well, no, not quite. So they can just ban it straight up. However, Ohio has a long-standing thing where the people of Ohio, regardless of parties and districts and anything, can put constitutional amendments to their state's constitution on the ballot, and those are just a full-on majority vote. 50, like if you get 51%, you get 50.01%, it's now in the Constitution. So people who want to protect the right to reproductive care basically put you have a right to get abortions constitutional amendment on the ballot, and that would supersede anything the Republicans are doing to ban abortion in the state. And polling showed,
even if you voted, it's like, let's say there was, it's actually kind of interesting, right? Because it's like, hey, let's say you have a party, and theoretically that you agreed with 90%, right?
Yep.
But 10% of what they do, you don't agree with. It's like, but the other party you only agree with like 10%. You're not voting for them, right? But what you could do is you could vote for the party you agree with 90%. And then for the other 10%, you could just say, hey, all the people who aren't politicians, right? We voted for this party because we like it, but we, the people, don't actually agree with the evil politicians in this party who are 10% evil, right? So we're just going to direct democracy the other 10% and go around them. And thus, the will of the people wins out. You get the 90% you agree with and the other 10% that you agree with, and the majority rules.
And early polling showed that about 59% of the people in Ohio want abortion protections in the state constitution. So this is definitely going to pass.
So a state that is 50-50 Republican, Democrat-ish, right? Those numbers indicate that, 20% of the Republicans actually want abortion to be legal.
Yep. So what did the Republicans do?
Democrats.
They took this weird August vote that normally doesn't even happen, that nobody votes in, and they put a measure in there. And that measure was to change the threshold for one of these statewide constitutional amendments from 50% to match the broken U.S. Senate threshold of 60%. And they chose 60%.
66%.
Well, yeah, it's even worse in the Senate. You know why they picked 60%? Because 59% of Ohioans want the right to an abortion.
That's right.
So the vote was... The people of Ohio voted 59% to continue to have majority rule instead of minority rule, thus preventing the Republicans from preventing the constitutional amendment to protect abortion that's going to be in the November ballot, which is really important because the November ballot is going to determine things like who controls the House of the United States, all sorts of other things. Like, this is huge for U.S. democracy, because the fundamental problem in American democracy is that a minority can block the majority will on anything. And Ohio actually, despite all the problems in that state, voted to say that a majority of people should generally get what they want.
I mean, this is the thing, is that there are people, and too many people in this country, who, don't believe the results of the elections.
Yep.
Right? They'll say, for various reasons, they're like, no, that's not, the vote is wrong. We've been lied to. There's a conspiracy, right? But even those people, the craziest of the crazies, right? They still believe in the principle of democracy. If you took a whole bus full of those people and we're driving on a road trip and you said, hey, should we stop at McDonald's or Pizza Hut, right? And if you just said, you know what, I'm in charge, I'm deciding, it's Pizza Hut, they would go, rebel, rebel. They don't like democracy, they don't like dictatorship, right? And if you said, okay, let's vote, and everyone raised their hands and saw for themselves how many hands there were for Pizza Hut versus McDonald's, even if it was, a one-person swing vote, all the people on the losing side who voted Pizza Hut and wanted, and lost, would go to the McDonald's. They would go along with the majority because they still believe in that fundamental principle. So this election, I guess if it was an election vote, whatever it was, I don't know. Right? What was on the ballot was that question, right? It was, should majority rule?
Yep.
And even Republican people are like, yes.
Yep, it seemed, and this pattern, this 40% pattern.
And of course, the savvy people know what they're really voting on, which is, should there be abortion? And of course, they're still, yes.
Yep.
Right? So,
but the 40% number was interesting to me because on pretty much every issue in American politics, the split in America is roughly 60-40 in favor of what progressives and Democrats want, or at least in that direction slightly. But yet, American politics tends to go in the direction of what the 40% want. Only 40% of Americans are like irredeemable shitheads. There are people between that 40% and the other side that are reachable in some way, or at least, regardless if you disagree with them, they believe in this basic concept of democracy to an extent.
Yeah, it's like, the first thing that those people yell about, right, is like, when they're being racist and nationalist against foreign countries, they're always ratting on other countries for their shitty dictators and their communist autocrats, right? It's like they also don't like, those things, at least, right? they believe in voting. They just, they're wrong about everything else.
Yep. But I guess this is just unequivocal good news, and I wanted, you should celebrate this. This is a big deal that this happened, especially in a state like Ohio.
For the people in Ohio, but a lot of other people in other states are just in trouble.
Yep. But one state at a time. Like you can't crank. You know what? There's a good analogy around trains. Freight trains don't start moving the entire train at once. There's slack in the system. The engine starts moving, and it's only pulling the first car. And once the first car is moving a little bit, the first car starts pulling the second car, and then the third car, and then the fourth car. No train on earth starts pulling all the cars at the same time. That is literally impossible.
Yep, that's true.
Do you have a news, or should we get right into the fun bit?
There's not, there's some gaming news and whatnot.
Yep, we'll save that for a Tuesday.
I got a news that will make appearance in the meta moment.
Ooh. Well, then I guess it's time for, I won't get overexcited and skip it, Things of the Day. This is a short, it looks like it was made in VR chat. I'm not sure, but it's a little skit. It's 37 seconds long, and it made me laugh out loud. I thought it was cute. It is Roru, Ganondorf, and Link discussing how the fight's about to go down in Tears of the Kingdom. And the line that I love, whenever someone says these words, it's usually a funny or interesting situation. It's something that a phrase you can borrow. Say less. just say less. That's all I got. Yeah, I think you'll laugh at this. So what do you got?
So Michael Chabon, Pulitzer Prize winning author of book club book selection Cavalier and Clay, among many others, during the dark times, did a very small project. He basically put together this image, which he basically tried to recreate the bookshelf from the bookstore that he went to in his young days, right? So he found all these book covers and arranged them in this JPEG in high resolution, I guess to use as like a wallpaper. But for your purposes, right? I guess you could use it as a wallpaper if you want, because it's lots of cool old, 60s, 70s style, sci-fi fantasy book covers. Which
I got it way zoomed out, but I recognize several of these.
Yes, you recognize a whole pile of them, right? But at the same time, it is also a very useful JPEG because you can just go and read all these books in this JPEG.
Yeah.
You can, right? It's like
Talk about a set piece curated collection of likely worth reading or books.
other than the Star Trek section, it's like you can pretty much hit up this whole thing.
Those Star Trek novels aren't that bad.
I just don't like Star Trek.
Yeah, I know you don't. But they're not Forgotten Realms books, which I did read many of, and my low-key regret that in my old age.
Yeah, I don't think Forgotten Realms books existed at this time.
No, I do not think they did either.
Yeah, so
In the meta moment, the Geek Nights Book Club book, I have to update the post. It still says, "This is how you lose the time war." The book club book will be Murderbot Diaries, and we're just going to read as many of them as we read until like toward the end of September.
Progress update after dinner. Yesterday, I finished work, and then I went to go buy some enchiladas, and I ate the enchiladas in one park, and then I walked to a different park.
Ooh.
I laid on the bench, and I started reading the first book.
Oh.
And then the sun set, and then I finished reading that first book, so I'm already one book in.
I have not even started reading yet, partly because Emily came home.
One day, one book. So after you read and complete one book, I'll go to a second book, and then in the meantime, I'll read something different while I wait for you to catch up.
That first book will be pretty soon. These are not long books.
It literally took me maybe 2.5 hours, I guess, laying on a bench. So,
And of course, the other update, we will be live at PAX West 2023 with a brand new panel. Games you can't play. There's a lot going on there and a lot of topics to discuss. I'm still sad that we came up with a even better panel after we submitted this one and got it approved, but the even better panel will be a very good candidate for a future convention.
Also noteworthy, they just announced today, August 10th, that the keynote speaker of PAX West 2023 will be Reggie Fils-Aimé. Is your body ready?
This is the first time in like a decade I did not react with, that'll be interesting, or don't really care, but reacted with I legitimate, direct, immediate, and unprompted excitement about the keynote.
Yeah, my reaction was, shit, I gotta go wait in line early.
Yep.
I gotta make sure I get in there.
Yep. This is the first keynote in a decade where I legitimately worry it will fill if I just try to stroll in right before it starts.
I do. There may be a chance to ask a question, right?
I'm going to think about what question I would ask.
I've had this question. There's a question that I've wanted to ask to at least two people, right? Tim Apple and Reggie, which is...
Why is the secrecy?
Why so secret? He's a marketing guy. He knows the answer to this question, right? More than I think most people, which is like, why do you always keep everything secret and then release, everything at once? Why, it's like... I could imagine the reasons that you do it that way. And it's like, why not just tell us every detail of what's going on all the time, right? It's like, do you have like studies that show that that's actually better for you? It's like, do you know, or are you just doing it because it's the way you've always done it and it works, so why mess with it? It's like, like as a salesperson trying to market your stuff, do you have some sort of proof that this method of keeping everything secret and defending against leaks is actually more effective than being open, which nobody does?
Another strategy would be lots of leak fake stuff to the kinds of people who are obsessed with leaks to the point that everything is meaningless.
Some people do that, right? Like Apple will put out fake info and then people leak it and then they get busted.
I was always a fan of the Valve strategy of Half-Life 2 just fucking came out of nowhere. Here you go. You didn't even know we were making it.
But I'm just saying, it's like trying to keep secrets, period, right? It's like, why, it's like you do it, but like, why? Why not? Have you even thought about the opposite, like trying it, right?
Yeah.
Even just for one game, like pick one game and just try it and be like, for this game, we're going to have the whole development process is going to be open. Daily reports to the public, right? Just fucking everything that goes on. We're just going to let you know and keep you in the loop.
Wow, yeah, imagine if as Tears of the Kingdom was in development, there was like the weekly press conference, just like the presidential press conferences in the government.
Yeah, it's like,
sir, what? Tell us about this new character.
Yeah, here's some screenshots. Here's the level we're making. You know, you could see them change it over time.
Because what's fascinating, you know who does this?
Monster. I had to redesign the old monster.
A lot of indie developers do this. There are some indie developers I follow who literally are like, every day or every few days, they're like, here's the pre-alpha update on everything.
The thing is, I know that they do this internally, right? They have these status updates daily for their internal team. It's like, you work on a game, you're getting daily updates of like what's happening. It's like, is it really going to hurt you to make that public, or will it maybe have the opposite effect of building excitement?
What would be fascinating is if there was a concrete answer given for a specific game or an area of Nintendo where we hear the answer and go, oh, wow, that makes sense. Fascinating.
Yeah, it could be.
I'd love to hear what that answer could be.
I want to know just why so secret, right? How do you know that secrecy is the best strategy?
All right, so let's get right into the main bit, because this one I was thinking about, partly because not that long ago, Emily and I did go to the Hockey Hall of Fame, which is the first...
That was several years ago.
Yeah, that's relatively recently, because...
I guess relatively recent for how often people go to Halls of Fame.
Yep, because when Scott suggested this idea, my first thought was, I've been to a lot of Halls of Fame. And then I realized I have been to a lot of Halls of Fame in exactly two places. Niagara Falls, and I think most of them I would say are effectively fake, and Nashville, Tennessee.
I know another Hall of Fame you've been to.
Well, I guess also Pigeon Forge, Tennessee.
No, there's another Hall of Fame you've been to.
I've been to a few, I think.
I was there with you at this Hall of Fame.
I'm trying to think of what you're referring to.
In San Antonio, there was a hallway with a bunch of statues.
Oh, yeah!
It's a hall. It's literally a Hall of Fame.
It is. Well,
it's just a straight Hall of Fame.
Considering the Wikipedia article I found the Wikipedia article list of halls and walks of fame. Because the Hollywood stars, that counts. And I think there's a lot to talk about here because this is such a broad topic.
Well, I mean, so a Hall of Fame is interesting because you could say that it's just a subset of museum, right? A museum is a place you preserve history, collect artifacts and remembrance for future people. So it's always there, right?
But yet there are Halls of Fames that are just lists that do not exist anywhere physically.
Exactly. There are Hall of Fames that do not have any physical presence, do not have any collections, do not have anything of that nature. It's literally just some committee or some organization somehow with some process votes or decides whatever somehow, and to whether to add people. It's always people, right?
Yep.
I guess it doesn't have to always be people. It's usually
I've seen some Halls of Fame that were for other things.
Yeah, I've seen like horses, like horse racing, right? Yep. Things like that. But it's usually people, and then they decide which people are worthy of being included on the list and which one are not. And this serves, the same purposes as the museum, but it also serves additional purposes, right, of providing recognition to people who are supposedly deserving of it.
Yep.
Right?
I think it's worth reading because it's short. Wikipedia, for once, has such a succinct and good definition that it's really good. A hall, wall, or walk of fame is a list of individuals, achievements, or other entities, usually chosen by a group of electors to mark their excellence or fame in their field. In some cases, these consist of actual halls or museums that enshrine the honorees with sculptures, plaques, and or displays of memorabilia and general information regarding such inducted recipients.
Yeah. Now, there are some things, right, which sort of count as de facto halls of fame that are not. For example, if you win a Fields Medal, it's like, we don't call that the Math Hall of Fame.
Yep.
Right? But it's like a list of Fields Medal winners might as well be the Math Hall of Fame, right? Yep. Nobel Prize winner, right?
Yep. Pulitzer Prize winner.
Medal of Honor recipient. Knight of the British, whatever the fuck they've got going on over there. Words, right? It's like, significant person who is significant for a reason and in a particular category, right? And these are big and small, right? It's like little old middle schools have halls of fame, right, for students and shit, right? It's like there's so many halls of fame from the big to the small, right, all over the place. You know, you can find them like sometimes you can just find them like in a park or in a church or wherever. It's like it's just the smallest place. It's like here's a list of significant people here, you know, a summer camp, at least a Hall of Fame, the best campers you've ever had.
You know what? An example, the tiniest Hall of Fame that I am in myself.
And
so this is the tiniest Hall of Fame, but I think it counts because a lot of Halls of Fame serve a very important purpose, I think, in that they are often very local. And like a town will have like, these are the 10 fucking people that made this town. My high school, in every classroom that was an AP classroom, along the tops of the wall, and it was big and growing, but there was still plenty of space, anyone who got a 5, basically the top score on the AP test for that class, got to paint their name in a tiny designated space on this wall.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to paint my name on 7 of those walls.
Yep. And so that is the other thing a Hall of Fame does that a museum does not do, which is encourage people, right?
Yep.
People.
When I was a 9th grader and I had a class that was in one of those rooms, I remember looking up and being like, what are all those names up there? And the teacher's like, oh yeah, those are people who aced the AP test. I was like, my fucking name's going to be up there.
That's right. It's
like I thought about that for 4 years.
I mentioned summer camp because one summer camp I went to, they had in the main like hall room, this room in the big house, right? There was a thing that said Order of Watonka. It was Camp Watonka, right?
Yeah.
And there was a very short list of names. And it's like, how do you get on the Order of Watonka? It was quite, I could have done it except for the push-up requirement.
Oh no.
If it wasn't for the push-up requirement, and literally the way it works is this one day where they're like, all right, who wants to try to join the Order of Watonka? And the first thing you have to do is wake up early, come to the flagpole, and you do push-ups, and the last X people remaining are still in, and everyone's out. And obviously, that wasn't going to happen, right? But everything after that, I could have done. It was like the next thing was like, go and like, do shit. The archery range. I could have done every other thing on the list after if I made it past step 1. And I would have made the Order of Watonka likely. All right. The last thing you have to do is sleep in the woods overnight and not die.
And I think, but I think that motivational factor is really important to this concept, and I think it's a good thing. Yeah. Like I don't have a cynical take on this, especially considering looking at Wikipedia, I just learned where the term Hall of Fame came from. And it's very specific and kind of recent. It's a thing. There was the Ruhmeshalle in Munich, built in 1853.
With a name like that, obviously.
Yeah.
You don't need to say the place.
Literally means Hall of Fame. It was basically in Germany, in Bavaria.
You don't say.
Leo von Klenz designed for Ludwig I of Bavaria a complex to name people who were great and important and keep a record of them for people to know about in the future, basically. Like, These are people who mattered. We have made a Hall of Fame for famous, important Bavarians.
And the thing is, some of the people are going to be so famous, right, that they didn't really need the Hall of Fame to carry them forward.
Like
right?
Wayne Gretzky did not need the Hockey Hall of Fame for people to remember his name forever.
Not now, but maybe in 100 years they will.
Yeah.
Right?
When climate change ends the concept of hockey, and hockey is this ancient sport that was played in a different kind of earth, but maybe there's a Hall of Fame there was this ancient sport and the Hall of Fame listed Wayne Gretzky the first.
Yeah, it's like, just having the list of names might not be valuable for the preservation aspect unless you also preserve, the contextual information of what made the person great, right? But they usually do, at least.
Yep.
Right? Even in the San Antonio one, was just one hallway with statues. Each statue had a small plaque which described why they felt that person was worthy.
And that's because I think that's very important, because I've realized, this is an aside, but it's relevant. I am increasingly disavowed of the general concept of prescriptive legalism in any domain, like anywhere in the world. What I mean by that is a lot of nerds in particular get hung up on an achievement of some kind. Like they would expect an award in video games to have objective, specific, extremely prescriptive criteria. And they don't like the idea of people just deciding based on being humans who are smart and trusted to make decisions. And halls of fame seem to nearly universally rely on a group of people who are generally trusted or who have at least agreed to come together to make this decision. And the criteria is basically these people decide. Like the Hockey Hall of Fame doesn't have a scorecard so much as they vote and discuss and debate who will enter the Hall of Fame year after year.
Of course, the problem there is who are the voters, right?
Yes.
Oftentimes, for various halls of fame, the people voting could be a bunch of crusty old white guys.
Well, like the Oscars is a terrible process, and the people who do it are like there's a lot of bad people in that process.
Yes, exactly.
The Hockey Hall of Fame is actually de facto the NHL Hall of Fame. They, in fact, have a rule that says at least one person has to know something about amateur hockey, and at least one person has to know something about non-NHL hockey, and the rest of them are just NHL people, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. But there are people who are very important to hockey who are not NHL people who are inducted to the Hockey Hall of Fame. You know,
and I guess this comes down to
Hockey Hall of Fame who are around before an NHL existed.
Yep, and that's, I guess, the important thing. A Hall of Fame is judged by the quality of its electors, because a well-run Hall of Fame, however it is run, whoever makes the decisions, even if it's a dictatorship, if the domain the Hall of Fame is representing generally respects that Hall of Fame, then they're doing something right.
Yeah, it's like anyone can set up a fucking Hall of Fame. I could just set one up right now. And it's like, you know, but for it to actually be recognized, for people to care about getting in, be honored if they get in, you know, I remember the early days of the internet, people would just make up awards, make JPEGs like the Scott Award and give it to websites, hoping that the websites would post their award with a link back. And it's like, but who cares about your award? And in the end of the day, only the Webby Award got any sort of care about it. And even that, no one really cares, right? Like if you make a Hall of Fame, it needs to get recognition, and to be recognized, you actually have to, you know, choose wisely, and legitimately. If you're just choosing for, you know, illicit reasons, your whole operation becomes suspect and no one cares anymore, right? It's like,
the Hall of Fame of people who gave me the most money in descending order.
Exactly, right? It's like, you know, that's why you don't call it a Hall of Fame when you have list of donors at the Opera House, right? It's our generous benefactors. It's not Hall of Fame. Right? Hall of Fame is for the performers, not for the benefactors.
Yep. So the only Hall of Fame I've been, because the only Hall of Fame I've been to, as in it's also a museum in recent history, is the Hockey Hall of Fame, and I gotta say, it's a pretty fantastic museum.
Yeah.
Like even though it's just like it's like in the lobby of an office tower, like it's just kind of there.
Yeah.
But it's just a legit museum. Like it was well worth the price of admission. My favorite room in it was the room of here are all the deadly hockey masks from the era before we had relatively good modern ones.
Yeah, but that part of it is a museum, which while the museum is associated with the Hall of Fame, the organization, like the museum that part of the museum is not a Hall of Fame. Right?
It's not like they have
the museum that's a Hall of
the
Fame. The
preserved body, like dead saints of all the hockey players and hockeymen inducted into the Hall of Fame are like lined up there in some sort of catacomb. Though that would be really cool.
You have plaques or photos, or just a list of names, or you have something of that.
But they also have the sections where like every person who has been honored, has been inducted as an honoree of the Hockey Hall of Fame, has an area about them, which was also really fascinating, especially because, you know, if you don't pay attention to the Hockey Hall of Fame, it's not just hockey players. It's like great coaches, people who are just part of the community. Some like important refs are there. All sorts of people are on this list.
Yeah. So on the one hand, it's always a constant, never-ending debate, especially in sports talk radio, because they got nothing else to talk about. Especially in the off season, they got nothing to talk about for any sports, right? So they're always talking about halls of fame, right? And like, is this person worthy of making it in? Is this person who's still early in their career a shoo-in? Is this these are the people who are eligible to get in this year. Which ones do you think will make it? It's like, do you think it was right that it wasn't unanimous? One person voted against just to make it not unanimous. You know, all these sorts of debates about who should be in, who shouldn't be in, right? What counts? Is it the Hall of the Very Good? Should it?
Yep.
Should we raise the bar, right? Or should we not? It's like, should it just be for people who are very good at doing the thing, or
Yep.
also people who made the contribution?
And how big should it be? A Hall of Fame that has 100,000 people in it kind of loses its meaning. The Hockey Hall of Fame has under 300 people honored total.
Yeah, it has to be relative to the thing you're doing, right? As long as the the proportion is, good enough, right? Then you can still. But if the number is too big, if half the people who ever played baseball were in the Baseball Hall of Fame, obviously that wouldn't mean anything.
Yeah,
right?
Hockey. Not everyone who won the Stanley Cup is in the Hall of Fame, and many people who never won the Stanley Cup are in the Hall of Fame.
They're in one place.
They are. They
on the Stanley Cup. That's
well. They are in the physical Hall of Fame, but they are not inducted as honorees of the Hall of Fame.
Not at all.
I think another important aspect is Halls of Fame. This is one of the places where a little bit of ceremony and pomp and circumstance, I think, is important. Like that aspect of celebration.
Well, like in Hollywood, you put your hands in the cement, right?
Yeah.
Or usually having a thing like that really adds some specialness, right? Some special ceremony.
Even if you fake it till you make it, a brand new Hall of Fame has got to act like this is an honored and storied tradition from day one, or it's not going to stick.
Yep. Or at least people won't care about it as much, right? If I get inducted into the Podcasting Hall of Fame, even if it's the only one and it's super legit, it's like, I'd be like, all right.
Yep.
It's like, you have to make me care somehow, right?
Yep. That would have to be like, we're in our 70s now, and podcasting became something like super important and big in the world.
If they had a place and it's like, yes, there is this special podcasting place, and it's like we make a special, there's a wall of microphones, and we put yours up there with, a green one just for you because that's what you want with your name on it.
Yep. It's like, you fucking did this the longest of anyone.
Even if that's some crapo Hall of Fame that no one gives a shit about, it's like, it's like they still made like a special place just for you to be honored. It's like, I would feel somewhat honored if they did that, right?
It's a mark of respect, and it's an earnest one if a group of people in good faith are saying, in this area, that is a person who was actually important to us and to it in some way, and we agree.
And worthy of being not forgotten to other people engaging in this area in the future, right? It's a person to look up to in at least within one area of life, and did worthy contributions, etc.
So I think wherever you live in the world, if it's a place that you've put down some real roots in, like physically, like that's a place you feel like is a home to you, I think it's worthwhile to have a sense of what are the sort of halls of fame or like important civic people in that place. Like, it's a good thing to know about a place you live.
It could be what place, whether, not just physical place, but also any community, any group, any category, whatever, right? Whatever your nerdery is. Maybe you're really into, doing, pixel art, perler bead stuff, right? It's like, you could set, if the Hall of Fame for that thing doesn't exist, make one. Be like, hey, this is the person who really popularized. Start with just the most important person, right? Be like, this is the person who put in the work to make this thing really take off, right? They've been running this community for so long. That's usually how a Hall of Fame starts, right? Is you just give recognition to like one important person, right? And somehow, right? Like we thought what you did was so amazing. We want to recognize you, our most important person. And then you recognize the second most important person, maybe some years later, and then a Hall of Fame naturally evolves from that.
And the cool part is, if you do this, then a community or a domain or the thing you care about went from having 0 of them to 1. And if you're bad at it, someone will do it better than you and replace you. Or you're the only one, and that's better than none. You've got nothing to lose.
It can help to bolster your, to enhance if your community is big enough, right?
Yeah.
It can be a big enhancer. It can juice your community a little bit, right? Giving them something to talk about in the off season, giving them something to strive for, giving them if you have a place where this thing exists, a place to go, or, to think about, or, right? It can enhance any community where, it is applicable. So either I would encourage people to if there is a Hall of Fame for the thing you do, just put at least a little bit of thought to like, how can you get there, right? What can you do to get into it, right? And maybe change what you're doing in your life to reach it, not for reasons of ego or because of award, but
to better yourself.
The actions that are taken by someone to reach a legitimate Hall of Fame are actions taken in a life well lived. And so even if you try to strive to reach it and don't, you will still be striving towards things that are worthy of doing, right? And bettering your life, your one life on this earth. And if the Hall of Fame for the thing you do doesn't exist, maybe you don't have to like make a Hall of Fame just from nothing, but think about who is the most important person who has done the most work, who is super worthy of recognition and hasn't gotten any because there isn't anyone to give it, and find a way to award that and celebrate that one person one time and give them, I don't know, a piece of paper, like a certificate.
If nothing else, even if you can't, won't, or don't do any of those things, learn about that person. Like read their biography, like learn if you think to yourself in this area that I care about a lot, if I made a Hall of Fame, this would be the first person I'd put in it. If you don't know a lot about that person, learning a lot about them is a great way to enrich yourself and whatever that thing is.
It could even be as simple as like just writing a blog post celebrating that person, right? Like, let me tell you how great person X is, right? Who is so important to this community, right? And, and just celebrate them by extolling their virtue. And that blog post is basically beginning sort of a Hall of Fame, kind of.
Yeah. Now that maybe 100 years later, someone reads that post somehow, like in an archive doing research, and they're like, that's one of the earliest representations of a Hall of Fame for that domain. Here we go.
That happens a lot, is that a lot of Hall of Fames start, and those Hall of Fames start by inducting the people in recent memory, and then years and years later, people dig back and like, hey, there was this really important person who should be in this Hall of Fame, but never was, because it started in the Hall of Fame was founded in the racist times, or the Hall of Fame was started in the misogynist times, and you left out these people that you didn't even consider back in the day. And we found out about them because somebody had bothered to write about them or record about them or something, right? So in 100 years, 50 years, I don't know, decades, Geek Nights never makes it in the Podcast Hall of Fame, but someone writes an article about Geek Nights, and when the Podcast Hall of Fame appears in 2090...
I found there are at least 3 different Podcast Halls of Fame that I'm looking at right now. They are fascinating.
I'm sure they are, but somebody will research and realize, hey, there was this podcast that ran for like way too fucking long.
Yep.
Why aren't those people in this Hall of Fame? Just no one ever knew about them.
Yep.
And then
they weren't popular, but they did it for 70 fucking years. What?
They were ahead of most of the people at doing it. Right? So that's the kind of thing that can happen only to people more deserving, obviously.
Yeah.